Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Thursday, November 21st. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We actually gave it a play today on a Saturday game in college football, so we did not have anything on the actual card yesterday. It's a bit unfortunate, as if you actually, the play I was thinking about giving out was on the Syracuse Cornell under, which ended up hitting. I gave that out as a lean, but either or, we didn't have a play today, so there's not much to recap. But we will dive into today's card. A lot of stuff going on, college basketball, NBA, but the play of the day is going to be on the Thursday night football game between the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. And we actually are going a bit contrarian here. We're going to be taking the Indianapolis Colts on the money line, which is available at plus 166 on FanDuel, and that will be the play of the day. Now, in terms of just discussing Thursday night football in general, a lot of people tend to gravitate towards the home teams on Thursday night because it's a short week, and historically the home team does really well on Thursday night. However, this season, home teams only 6-5 straight up. They really haven't been that great in terms of recent years in comparison, so I think that narrative is a bit overrated in terms of this spot. But overall, with the Colts, both teams are 6-4. I feel like whoever wins this game is going to end up winning the division. And I just think the Colts are a better coached team. If you look at both teams, people are going to be pushing the narrative that the Texans got embarrassed last week against the Ravens. They're going to be motivated to come back and to do something. And you can say that maybe that's true, but at the same point, the Colts lost to the Dolphins a couple weeks ago, and they are still in the hunt for the division. They need to win every game moving forward, especially with the Titans at 5-5 breathing down their neck. The Colts have dominated the series in recent years. If you look at trends, the Colts are actually 6-0-1 against the spread in the last 7 meetings in Houston. The Colts are 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings, and the road team is 8-2 against the spread in the last 12 meetings. Now, I know some of those stats don't apply anymore because of the fact that Andrew Luck is no longer the quarterback of the Colts, but Brissett is actually undefeated against the Texans in his career, so he's actually done pretty well against Houston. And the Colts should actually be getting another weapon back on offense, as T.Y. Hilton is expected to play after missing the last couple of weeks due to injury. He's expected to play. Ebron's expected to play. The Colts are starting to get healthier. And the Texans, they're missing a decent portion of their secondary with Mike Adams and Justin Reed, who are still going to be out. Gibson's questionable. I don't know if he's going to play. Fuller's still questionable with a hamstring. And I just don't trust the Texans' ability to actually protect Watson. We've mentioned that in the past, how the Texans are really good whenever they can protect Watson, really bad whenever they can't protect Watson, and the Texans gave up multiple sacks to the Ravens last week as they were unable to keep Watson off of his back. The Texans' defense at the same point is completely imploded with the injury to J.J. Watt. They have no pass rush. They are okay against the run, not great, but they got exposed last week by the Ravens. I don't think there's anything that this team really does well defensively, and I think Frank Reich should be able to come up with a good game plan in order to exploit the Texans. The way that I view it is, if you're going to be betting the Texans, that means you're laying more than a field goal with Bill O'Brien, and I don't recommend doing that at any time whatsoever. So I think Frank Reich will come up with a better game plan. I think the Colts have the better defense. Offense, I think the Texans have the more dynamic offense, but I actually think the Colts are rushing attack. Even with Marlon Mack injured, still looked really good last week. Their offensive line is still really solid. I think they'll dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and I think this game should be very close, but I would lean to the Colts as the play of the day on the money line. I think 3.5 is too many points. At the end of the day, you might have to rely on Vinatieri for a field goal or two, which is always, a stress and a half. But overall, I think the Colts are the better overall team, and I think that plus 166 is a gift. I think this line should be around plus 130, plus 120. So based on the value alone, DraftKings has the Colts money line at plus 150. So you're getting an extra 16 points of value there in terms of the money line. And I'll take plus 166 any day of the week in my pocket. So the play of the day will be on the Indianapolis Colts on the money line at plus 166 on FanDuel, which is available at the time of recording of 2:44 p.m. on Thursday, November 24th. 21st. Now, in terms of the rest of the card here, just give a quick breakdown of some games that I've been looking at. In college football, you pretty much have nothing to talk about besides the North Carolina State and Georgia Tech game. I actually wrote an article about this game earlier in the week. It was published, I believe, on Tuesday, and I lean to the Wolfpack here. Georgia Tech, I know it's senior day. I know that the team itself has a night game, and the crowd might be into it. Georgia Tech is terrible. And I knew that everybody going into the season expected Georgia Tech to be terrible, but they were really bad. Now, North Carolina State is also underachieved. However, North Carolina State is still 4-6. They still have a shot at a bowl game, which means that this game is a must-win situation for North Carolina State. I think that even though they've looked humiliating in the last couple of weeks, I think that a matchup against Georgia Tech should get them back on track. Leary's been a pretty good quarterback ever since he became the starter, and North Carolina State's just better at every single statistic than Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has the inferior offense, the worst defense. I think the Wolfpack should be able to win this game, and I would lean to the Wolfpack to win by at least a field goal, so lean to North Carolina State on that one. In the NBA, there's not many games on. You only have two. You have Phoenix versus New Orleans, and you have the Trailblazers against the Bucks. Lean to the Bucks here. I feel like you have to keep fading Melo on the Trailblazers. Portland's just not a good team. We had money on them earlier this year against the Warriors and ended up losing outright. Because at that moment, I knew that this team just didn't have it. So far this season, it looks like they're not even going to make the playoffs based on how they've been going so far. Some of that has to do with injuries. Nurkic hasn't played all year. Collins is going to be out for another 3-4 months. But this team, I don't know what it is. They just lack a certain just identity where I feel like they've noted what they're doing the majority of the time. Milwaukee's going to smack this team. I don't know. Whiteside's a good rim protector, but I don't think anyone can guard Giannis. I think that Milwaukee is just more fundamentally sound. Portland can't play any defense. Melo's going to go in at another negative 20-something from the floor because he can't guard anybody. Lean to Milwaukee. And for the late game with the Pelicans and the Suns, I'll lean to the over 233.5. It's been bet up from 233 to 234 in some spots, but it's still available at 233.5. It's a high total, but I think there's a reason why it's been bet up. I'll lean to the over on that one. Now, for college basketball, I wrote a couple of articles on some games. I wrote an article about Texas at -5. It's already up to -7, and I also lean to the over in that game. I don't really know how to feel about that line now. I think 7's too high on a neutral, but I would lean to the over 144.5, as I think that game should see more points than people might anticipate. Other than that, I wrote an article about California and Duke. I really don't like this game, but I lean to California plus the points. Duke has been solid, but they haven't really won by a lot of margin. They beat Georgia State in their last game by 11. I think in a neutral, I think California can hang around. This team's pretty good defensively. I think Duke will win, but I think they'll win by about 15 points. I think 19's a bit too high. Lean to California on that one. Other than that, though, do I really like anything else on the card? Not really. Don't really like anything in terms of just college basketball itself. I wrote an article about Washington State as well. I got them at -7. They ended up closing now at -9. Not much value in that anymore. Overall, yeah, college basketball is pretty uneventful. It's the first round of some tournaments, so you should see some better matchups coming up in the next few days. But other than that, though, play of the day will be on the Indianapolis Colts money line, which is available at +166 on FanDuel, and I just think that's a solid one. Other than that, though, that's going to do for this installment of Scott Selections here for Thursday, November 21st. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.